The wind howled through the streets of Chicago that night, rattling the old windows of Jameson's small apartment. Outside, snow swirled violently, coating the sidewalks in a thick, unforgiving layer of white. Inside, 37-year-old David Reynolds sat hunched over the kitchen table, his son Jacob asleep on the couch under a threadbare blanket. David's hands trembled as he stared at the envelope in front of him. He had been fired that morning. No warning, no explanation, just a terse email that ended a decade-long career. Bills were piling up, rent was overdue, and the thought of facing another month in this tiny apartment alone with his 9-year-old son was suffocating. And then the knock came. It was soft at first, almost hesitant. David hesitated, unsure if he should answer. The streets were icy, and he didn't recognize anyone in this part of town at night. But something in the voice outside, a woman's voice, shivering, desperate, made him move. When he opened the door, he found a stranger. She was drenched from the snow, her blonde hair plastered against her face, and her blue coat clung to her as if it had been through the storm itself. Her eyes were a striking shade of green, wide and pleading. She looked exhausted, cold, and frightened. Without thinking, David stepped aside. "Come in," he said, his voice rough but kind. "You'll freeze out here." She entered slowly, shaking, and he offered her a towel and a mug of hot cocoa. He didn't know why, but something about her made him trust her. Maybe it was the way she avoided his gaze when she spoke, or the softness in her voice when she whispered a quiet thank you. He went back to his son, tucking Jacob deeper under the blanket. The stranger, who introduced herself as Clara, settled by the heater, curling up like a small bird desperate for warmth. While she warmed up, David stared at the fire flickering in the corner, thinking about his life. Losing his job felt like losing his identity. He had spent years providing for Jacob, giving him a stable home and the sense of safety every child deserved. Now it felt like the rug had been pulled from under him. But seeing Clara shivering in his living room stirred something unexpected, a spark of compassion, a reminder that even in the worst moments, kindness mattered. As the night stretched on, they talked. Not in long, elaborate conversations, but in short, honest exchanges. Clara spoke about her travels, her favorite books, and the little joys that had kept her going through hard times. David, in turn, shared pieces of his life he hadn't told anyone in years. The struggles of being a single dad, the fear of losing everything, the weight of his own mistakes. Jacob, who had been quietly listening, occasionally peeked out from under his blanket, curious about the gentle stranger in their home. Somewhere between the laughter over spilled cocoa and the quiet moments by the heater, David felt something shift inside him. For the first time that day, he felt hope. It wasn't the kind of hope that solved all problems instantly, but the kind that reminded you life was still full of unexpected moments, full of people who could make a difference. If you believe in the power of kindness and second chances, don't forget to like this video, comment your thoughts, share this story, and subscribe to the channel. Hours passed, the storm outside finally beginning to calm. David went to make dinner, and when he returned, Clara was sitting by the kitchen table, her eyes fixed on something in her hand. A small, sleek card with an embossed logo. She looked up and smiled faintly. There was a familiarity in her expression that David couldn't place at first, a subtle confidence that seemed out of place for someone who had appeared so vulnerable hours ago. It wasn't until she mentioned her work that the room went cold. "I've been traveling a lot this week," Clara said casually, "so I wasn't in the office when your email came through." David frowned. "Email?" He realized the weight of her words only now. "Which office?" Clara held up the card, revealing the name of the company. David's stomach dropped. It was the company that had just fired him, the one that had left him feeling betrayed, lost, and hopeless. He stared at her, speechless, unable to process the absurdity of the situation. The stranger who had warmed up by his heater, who had listened to his fears and shared her own stories, was the owner of the company that had just taken away his livelihood. Clara's eyes softened. "I never expected to find someone like you in my building tonight," she said. "And I certainly didn't expect to hear your story like this. The email you received, there was a mistake in our HR system. It was never meant to go through. You're not fired." David's mind reeled. The mixture of disbelief, relief, and embarrassment was overwhelming. All these hours, He had offered kindness to a stranger, not knowing she held the power to change his life. And yet, she hadn't asked for anything in return. She had come to his door in the storm and they had shared warmth, not knowing the twist fate had in store. By the end of the night, David felt tears streaking his face as he hugged his son and looked at Clara with gratitude deeper than words could express. This encounter wasn't just about a job. It was about humanity. It was about remembering that even in despair, a simple act of kindness could ripple outward and change everything. In the days that followed, David returned to work, but now with a story he would never forget. Clara and he stayed in touch, their bond born from that snowy night and the shared humanity that had brought them together. The world, David realized, was far stranger and more beautiful than he had ever imagined. If this story touched your heart, please like, share, and comment down below. Tell us about a time when kindness found you in the most unexpected way. It might inspire someone else to open their heart tonight. Sometimes it takes just one small act to turn despair into hope, strangers into friends, and loss into a second chance at life. David had learned that night that compassion could break barriers, that generosity could meet power in the most extraordinary way, and that even in the harshest storms, warmth could be found when least expected. Before you go, I'd love for you to comment how this story made you feel. Your thoughts could make someone else's day brighter. And so, in that little apartment in Chicago, a father, his son, and a stranger turned savior discovered a truth bigger than any job, paycheck, or setback. Life's miracles often come disguised as ordinary people, knocking softly on your door.